Alright, so this is another black screen video slash vlog, and this time it's gonna be over one of the most popular used strings by the tennis community and the choices string of Rafael Nadal, RPM Blast. And I'm not gonna be covering the tour version or not tour RPM team. I'm just gonna be covering the main RPM Blast. And I use this string in my racket right now. I'm trying it for the first time, so it's been in my Aero, Pure Aero 2019 for almost a month now, and I think I know how this string plays, and I'm gonna explain that to you guys. So, right when you put in your string in your racket, right when you put the string in your racket, I don't know, I was really excited because I've heard so many good things about the string. And for those first few minutes, you're for every new string, you're just adjusting to it. You're trying to feel how it is. And I found that very simple. I was able to adjust to it fairly quickly. I didn't have too much thought about it. It didn't take me a long time. It was really simple for me. And I could definitely notice the slide and how much spin I was getting on the ball from the first hit. And I use a lot of topspin, and I was noticing how much more spin I was getting than I usually do. And it was great. I had extremely good control. The feel of contact with the ball was extremely nice. I was not finding it too uncomfortable. The string was not too lively or anything. It was just right for my game. And I was able to play with or without the wind. Like, when I say with, I mean against the wind or with the wind. And I didn't find any trouble on either side of the court. And, it was great for the first 2-3 hours. And it's a polyester, so it's really durable. There's no string sliding at all. Plus, I put it at 55 pounds, so I wasn't expecting any of that happening. But then after 2 or 3 hours, I kept playing games, and I really noticed the tension loss, and then I could feel a lot more flex in the strings after just 3 hours. And even while tightening the strings so high, I felt that there's a lot more of the trampoline effect. Instead of staying like just a board. How I think about it, when I string my racket, I feel like it's just like a wooden board or something, where if I hit it, it's just gonna go back straight exactly where I want it to, where there's hardly any trampoline effect. And I don't like the trampoline effect too much. I make my own power. So when I felt this effect after just 3 hours, I knew it wasn't my taste, and I noticed that for the price, it wasn't really my liking after that time. Also, I felt that if you don't have a dampener on, I was getting a lot of extra. It was just way too lively for me, honestly. The ball was going way too high. The clearance was way more than I usually want. On my drop shots, I felt like they were going too high, and it was giving the opponent too much time to react. They weren't going low and down to the baseline or just a perfect drop shot. So I was struggling. Then I put a dampener, and I felt that I was able to control the ball more. But without the dampener, I was struggling after those 3 hours to get the nice touch on the ball. I think a reason for this is with the RPM Blast, I noticed that when you swung more freely and with a higher racket head speed, the string softened. The string was not hard at all. It was really nice and comfortable on the arm when you were using a high racket head speed. But as you slowed that down, and you're like trying to hit drop shots, which is like pretty much very minimal racket head speed, because with the slow finish, it gets really stiff, and I think that may have been a reason for my feel of the ball being a little bit off on the soft touches. So I don't really think this is the best like string for that nice feel, touch, and even comfort if you're not having that fast racket at speed. And honestly, I don't think this string is for everyone. I mean, most premium strings everyone can pretty much use, and it's gonna help out in a good way. And this string does do that. But like most premium strings, this is completely directed to the pros. This was made for Rafa. Okay, it's for him to use for like 1 hour or less, and then him to like switch out with another racket with a fresh bed of strings, because honestly the strings just don't play that well for more than like 2 or 3 hours. You feel that loss. And I I'm planning on testing next the Solinco Hyper G, because I've heard that those ones stay really nice and the same consistent feeling for almost 8+ hours, and then the tension loss is very minimal on those, um, even though they are poly. So having a good tension loss, like very minimal, is very hard to find in polyester strings. So I'm going to be testing that out next to see what I think about it. Um, but with this RPM Blast, I I don't think it's meant for people that want that perfect spin, feel, and um, that control, unless you're gonna be able to like restring them often and like switch them out, like. And honestly, it's unless you have the budget for it, or you're like playing like the pros and like having like all your rackets strung extremely fast, I would not suggest this string to you. There's a lot better options. There's Vocal Cyclone, which is a little bit more livelier, but which all that means is that it's like you like how to explain this? Okay, so at least according to Tennis Warehouse, if the string is black, that means it plays the most dead. Now all that means is that it's gonna have that different type of feel. The ball's not gonna fly on you. It's gonna usually be lower powered. Vocal Cyclone, it comes in orange, black, and I think maybe another color possibly. But when they were reviewing the orange color at Tennis Warehouse, they said it was more lively, and that just means it has somewhat more free power and a little bit more clearance, but it replicates the spin and probably does it better in the first few hours. Uh, According to Chris from Tennis Warehouse, he prefers the Vocal Cyclone more than the RPM Blast. Even though Vocal Cyclone is half the price, he prefers that compared to like a premium high standard string. So there are a lot more options to replicate what this string does for a more affordable price to the common player, in comparative to the pros. So if you really want to test it out, I would highly recommend it. It's a great experience, feeling like you can hit any ball and it's always going to dive into the court. But after a while, it you do feel the stiffness coming in, unless you have a dampener or you have a very flexible racket. But I think there's a lot better options for a more affordable price that will like give you better playability for a longer amount of time. But what I did notice throughout the full month, after the first initial, like after the first 3 hours of the tension drop, I have not felt that tension dropping anymore. I felt that it stayed the same after those 3 hours. So if you want, you can string it a lot higher than usual. So like I normally string a 55. Maybe next time I'll string it at 57, play with it for like 1 hour in practice, and then for my game and tournament, it's gonna be around what I like. So it's gonna be nice and comfortable, and it's not gonna lose tension throughout the game or anything. So I think that's a good option because I noticed, I honestly didn't notice any tension drop after those 3 hours, and I really didn't find a reason to like change strings. But I the what the string's known for, the extreme spin, the bite on the ball, I noticed that going away after the 3 hours. So if you want those qualities to stay and the playability to be longer, but you're fine with tension dropping, um, you can for sure find another string. But I think this string is pretty good to try, especially if you're already comfortable using polyester strings, because this is more on the stiff side. So if your arm's comfortable, you used polys before, I would suggest it. Try it out, see if it helps your game. But do be aware that these strings are not completely aimed for the normal recreational player or like even like young like tournament level players. But if you're like in a high division, high league, go for it and make sure you're able to afford the string because it is higher than like $12. It's like $17+, so in USD dollars. So make sure you're able to afford that. But it's a great string, and I think everybody should get a try at it. Thank you. Please like the video, subscribe, share it with one of your friends that likes Rafael Nadal or wants to try RPM Blast, so they have a good idea of what to expect and not to just walk into a string not knowing what to do. Yeah, peace.